Hey, folks, we have been writing and talking about the President's immigration and border enforcement record so much of late that we wanted to sort of try to crystallize some of these ideas using this medium to help you understand what is a really important set of issues being debated in Washington today. And it's our basic take, having spent a lot of time with the data over the last few months and over the last few years, that on a tough set of issues around enforcement in the interior of the country and of the border, that the administration has done a good job. They have made the system better. The border is safer today. The immigration system itself is far better and far more humane than it used to be, and that both sides should give the president more credit than he deserves. Well, let's go through the numbers, right? So first of all, because of the huge border buildup that's been well documented, billions more spent, far more customs and border agents patrolling the border, we've seen a decline of crime on the U.S. side of the border across the entire border region. Today, El Paso and San Diego, the two largest border cities, are in fact the safest cities in the United States. A pretty remarkable accomplishment, particularly given the amount of crime that's just right over the river in Ciudad Juarez from El Paso. Second is something called the effectiveness rate of the Border Patrol. How many folks are they actually capturing as they're crossing the border? Has gone way up in virtually every of the corridors that we track. And today, in 4 of the 5 high traffic corridors, we are at or close to 90% effectiveness rate, which is the goal that was stated in the Senate immigration bill. Third, we know that the flow of migrants into the U.S., of unauthorized migrants into the United States, has gone from 700,000 a year a decade ago down to net zero today. It's in the hundreds of thousands, and when you include the deportations and just the normal churn that happens, we're actually at no net flow coming into the country. We have about as many undocumented immigrants today as we did 5 years ago. Again, sea change, an extraordinary accomplishment. But while we've had these security gains and we've made these huge investments in security, we've also seen, amazingly, a huge increase, despite the slow American economy, in trade with Mexico. We've seen almost a doubling of trade just in the last 5 years. Over $1 billion a day crosses our border with Mexico every single day, and over 1 million people cross that border. Otay Mesa, outside of San Diego, is the largest land border crossing in the world today. And Mexico now is our 3rd largest trading partner, our 2nd largest export market. Mexico buys twice as much every year from the United States as China does. And so even though we've had these security gains, we've also seen huge increases in trade. But on the issue that's getting all the attention today, deportations, let's drill down on that a little bit. We have new data from ICE that we didn't have before. And what it shows is that in 2010, when the administration said that they were going to change the enforcement priorities of the immigration system in the United States to target more border crossers, to create more border deterrence, to continue to drive down the flow, and also to only seek the criminals in the interior who were really a threat to public safety, we now have definitive data showing that those priorities are showing up in the actual deportation statistics. We've had a doubling of the people deported from the border region, and in the interior, fully 82% of the people deported from the interior had a criminal record. This is a sea change. And what it means is that today, in 2013, only 10,000 non-border crossers, non-criminals were deported from the United States. Well, what does that mean in English, right? What it means in English is that if you're an undocumented immigrant in the US, you do not have a criminal record, you don't leave the country, basically the threat of deportation has been lifted from you. For the vast majority of undocumented immigrants, they no longer should fear the immediate threat of deportation. That is fundamentally a different place than we were even as recently as 2009, when when the threat of deportation still hung over every single unauthorized immigrant in the United States. What's amazing, though, is that this smart change in policy, far more humane, targeting more criminals, toughening up on the border so the deterrent effect is kicking in, right? That's opposed by the House Republicans. What they voted on last year in this thing called the King Amendment that passed on a DHS appropriations bill, they wanted to roll back those Morton priorities. They wanted to make sure that, in fact, we weren't deporting murderers before moms. And they wanted to go back to a period when every undocumented immigrant in the country had threat of imminent deportation. They've argued that that is better enforcement policy than what the president has done. I disagree. And I think what I say to my friends on my side of the aisle, on the center left, right, is ease up on your criticism of the president. He's done much more of what you're asking for every day. And fundamentally, the undocumented community is in a far better place than it was when the president took office. We have an obligation to be honest about that. But to the Republicans who are critical, saying that the president's done a bad job on enforcement, give me a break, right? Crime is down, net migration is zero, trade is exploding, the effectiveness rates are close to 90%, and on deportations, we're removing far more criminals, murderers, instead of moms, right? What a smart public policy that is. So I think, on balance, when we look at the data, the president deserves a lot more credit from both left and right for having done a really good job on an operationally challenging issue and one that is full of rancorous politics. The immigration system today is far better and far more humane than when President Obama took office. The border is safer, and at the same time, we've been able to oversee an incredible explosion of trade with Mexico. The president's done a good job. He deserves more credit from both sides, and certainly the idea that the Republicans are using this as the main excuse for why they won't move forward in immigration reform shows how bankrupt that argument is. And they better come up with a new argument for why they're not moving ahead on immigration reform, because it's going to be our job to expose how bankrupt that actually really is. Thanks for listening. Love your feedback, love your comments. Read our stuff on our website, and let me know how, if we can let me know what you think about this argument. Have we changed the immigration system? We believe we have. Let us know what you think. Thanks, everybody.